Okay, welcome everybody to Judging Demystified. Who's this aimed at? Well, there's a bit in there for everyone, really. I started this first of all for new people who've never judged before. But since then, when I do it, I often get people saying, well, I've been asked to be chief judge. What do I do for that? So I've layered it up a little bit, and I'll take you gently through from being a judge the very first time and then being tiebreaker judge, possibly chief judge, so you can see how things unfold. But as I say, the first part certainly is aimed at people who've never judged before, have perhaps been asked and said no, and hopefully this will give you the confidence to say yes next time. You may still be able to say yes. We're very much at the beginning of competition season, so your club might not yet have had their competition. So let's dive in. So what qualifications do you need? At club level, literally, just to be a member who's paid their fees. That's all you need. You don't need any qualifications. You can do it without even having achieved level 1. But if you judge beyond club, usually area is the next one, you must have level 2. So that seems reasonable. So for your club, it's always good to have 1 or 2 new people who've never judged before. No more than 1 or 2, because you have a balance of other more experienced judges in case they are completely off track. Club level, you should have about at least 5 judges plus a tiebreaker judge. I'll explain that in a minute. Because someone always drops out on the night, someone's always ill, so the more the merrier. At area, you should be aiming at 8. So area and above, start aiming at 8 if you're having anything to do with your club competition. Yes, also at area, you must have been a paid member for a minimum of 6 months. So at club level, you can join yesterday, be a judge tomorrow. But area, you start needing a little bit more experience. However, if you have never been to a club competition before, I would start a little more gently, perhaps with a functionary role. Functionary roles are really good fun. You get involved, you see behind the scenes, you get a feel for things, and you get to hear the results before anyone else. So you can be a timekeeper, critical. You can be excluded on the basis of your time. So it's really important you have, usually there's 2 timekeepers who are keeping track so that if one, their stopwatch fails or something, they can have a backup. Sergeant at Arms, that's quite a nice role. You're just shepherding contestants about, but it really gives you a feel for a competition. And ballot counters, that is great fun. First of all, you get to see who the judges are, because they're supposed to be secret, really hard to keep them secret. And they go and collect the ballots, and they are the first ones to see the results. So ballot counter is a great in at the beginning of a competition. So if you've signed up for your club competition in some sort of role, then, do so. All of the roles are fully explained. You won't be just told to get on with it. You're given a briefing. Everyone's given a briefing, clearly explaining what you need to do. And usually the chief judge will support the ballot counters and timekeepers throughout anyway. Okay, so you've done a functionary role, or at least observed a competition. You don't want to enter it yet. Step up and be a judge. It's really great way to get involved, feel part of the team and support your club. And you'll start being a very popular person because you're versatile and you say yes when you're asked. Okay, so you've said yes. What's involved? There's a briefing. I already mentioned that. It's your role will be explained to you. It's pretty much what I'm going to show you now, so you will already be ahead of the game. But the judge, the chief judge, should at the very least remind you of one or two critical things. I'll point them out as we go. Sometimes it's online, sometimes it's in person just before the competition, but at some point you will be given a briefing. Arrive in good time. Do not give your chief judge anxiety attacks because there's 2 minutes to go and 3 of the judges haven't turned up. So be thoughtful, get there in plenty of time, especially if your briefing is just before the competition, but don't announce yourself. You are supposed to be secret. At club level, it's almost impossible to keep it secret. As you go up, we strive harder and harder to keep it that way. But don't go in and go, hello, I'm a judge, where do I go? So just be subtle. You should know who the chief judge is because they've probably briefed you or you know them anyway. Just give them a nod so they know you're here. And you need to be able to judge without bias. So if you're the sort of person that says, oh, have you seen who's speaking? Oh, he's going to win it. I know he's going to win it. If you're that sort of person, you got to really keep a control on your thoughts because you must judge without any bias or preconceived ideas. I've gone into a competition and thought, oh, they're probably going to win it. And then when I've been marking, I've been quite surprised that I've not been able to mark them as high as I thought, and someone else has overtaken them. So you've got to be flexible in your thoughts. You mustn't think, I know who's going to win. Right, so you must sign the judge's certificate of eligibility. Now, this is it. The first bit is basically what I've just said, that you are a paid up member of your club. And if you're judging an area that you've got level 2 and you've been a member for more than 6 months, the bottom bit goes on to division and above. And you can see the qualifications get more complicated. The club must be in good standing. Only members who joined Toastmasters prior to the rollout of pathways can use their competent communicator and so on. But don't worry about that. We're only concerned with club and area. So club, you need nothing except a membership. Area, you need level 2 or 6 speeches from the competent communicators and have been a member for 6 months. So that's all that's saying. So you tick the right bit at the top, you put the date in, and then you sign it. Now, there's no place here asking for any bank details or anything like that, so you can sign with confidence, but you are agreeing to uphold the code of ethics. It's pretty obvious stuff that you're not going to consider someone's club. So, oh, you know, they're from my club, I'm going to vote for them. You're not going to consider any past understanding or if you've heard them speak before. No conflict of interest. So if you've had a big row with someone and they're speaking, then don't be a judge if you really are going to hold that and not be fair. So it's pretty standard stuff. You should know your membership number. This will come up every so often, so I keep mine on my phone because I often need it. And you should know your district. So this eligibility is no great problem. I usually bring it on the night and give it to the chief judge because I'm not very good at doing electronic signatures, but if you can email it to your judge. And I have in the past, when I've been chief judge, accepted a photo of a signed form. I have never actually checked if that is allowed. I've only done it at club level. I think I've only been chief judge at club level, but that's something to bear in mind. So yeah, interesting. Don't know whether anyone knows the answer to that, but if you do, shout out. Okay, you're there on the night. the chief judge will provide you with this ballot. This one is for the humorous speech contest because that's what we're doing at the moment. They are slightly different for each competition, so be aware of that, but they have many similarities. Now, you might look at this and think, oh my goodness, I can't do that. I couldn't say whether they're a 10 or an 11 or... Don't worry. What I do, and everybody's different, I put either ticks and crosses or pluses and minuses. So once you've looked at this, make sure you're familiar with it. But if there's a good audience response, if the audience falls about laughing, you could put a big tick in the audience response box. If they have terrific body language and vocal variety, you can put ticks in that box, so on and so forth. And then at the end, if you've got lots of ticks, they're going to be up in the very good, possibly even excellent box. Be wary of giving top marks, especially early on in a competition. If you haven't really got any ticks or maybe some crosses, then you're going to give them a low mark from the first box. So you can very quickly just give a rough gauge. And once you've judged one, then the second one becomes easier and easier. If you've only got 5 competitors, put the name in one column, leave the next column blank for your working out and maths. So you've got all your ticks and crosses, and then you can see whether they're excellent, very good, good or fair. And if you're not sure, go for a middle range for that. And then always you have at least a minute to do a quick tally up. So my tip is if you're erring between a 9 and a 10, go for 10. It's easier to add up, but don't let that influence you too much. So you do a rough tally, add it at the bottom. Most importantly, you must sign it. The chief judge will tell you this in the briefing. They should remind you just before you go in. If you don't sign it, that bottom slip goes in the bin. And the bottom slip is all you hand in. All your scribblings and working outs, nobody sees them. So you can do whatever you like. I have known some judges, and I'm not advocating this, go on a gut reaction. If you're experienced, yeah, there may be some validity to that. I still like to have a good solid, oh yeah, I forgot they had a minus there. Yes, they did that, didn't they? I like to have some good solid figures. So in my head, I feel I've judged to the best of my ability. But no one's going to see it. And most importantly, make sure you take it home with you. If you leave it in the bin and a contestant goes, oh, look, there's one of the judges' notes in the bin, and they get it out and they see that you've put stars and crosses or even written words on, they might get a little bit upset. So make sure they're destroyed or given to the chief judge or tucked well away and you take them home. You must rank first, second, and third. No ties. You do not do any ties. Ties are dealt with in a different way. So if you've got 2 that have ended up with the same number, look back at your marks and think, oh, okay, this one was better here and not so good there. You must do just 1, 2, and 3. And the ballot counters then can use that. Now, I'm going to look a little bit more closely at the actual judging items that you're supposed to look at. It's really good if you can familiarise yourself with it, but be aware content is 55 marks out of 100. Content is over half of what you should be looking at. We are all wowed by a fantastic delivery. People come on and they make you laugh and they're expansive and that sticks in your mind and you think, God, they were good. but delivery is only 30 out of 100 marks. So bear that in mind. Try and get your numbers, and then if they're heavily weighted on one or the other, that will give you a true reading. And notice there's a little bit at the bottom, 15 marks for language. So I've occasionally put a minus if somebody's, in my opinion, used inappropriate language. Usually most people are well spoken. They'll hit the 3 or 4 for correctness, and middle range for the language they've used. But be aware, if you think that's a bit offensive or it's a bit near the knuckle, you can deduct marks for that. So let's have a little bit closer look at the criteria. This is on the back of your form, so you can have a quick recap before the contest. We're very familiar with delivery. We're so good on vocal variety and using the stage and using hand gestures and so on. So I'm going to just take a quick look at the content. That's where we fall down. So what are you actually looking for? You are looking for a purpose. Even in a humorous speech, there should be a purpose to the speech. You're looking for the structure. You all know it's opening, body, and conclusion. And you may be surprised when we come to look at table topics. Table topics are also required to have a conclusion. So that's quite hard because you can't look at the whole structure until the end, and then you've only got a minute to sort of put it all together. But you can certainly start marking the openings, and when they've got a nice well-structured main bit, perhaps with power of 3 and so on. How effective was it? Could you determine the purpose, or were you halfway through the speech and thinking, what, it's good, but what are they actually trying to say? So ask yourself these questions. Can you determine the purpose of the speech? And did the speech relate to that purpose? Or did it sort of briefly give a nod to it and then go off at a tangent? So the purpose is really key on the structure. It should be meaningful and original. If you're sitting there thinking, I heard something like this on the radio the other day, then it's possibly not original content, but should be meaningful and original. Tricky to judge, but most people do from their own experiences and so on. So quick look at the table topics contest ballot. As you can see, many similarities. Content, 55 marks again. Delivery, 30 marks again. And languages, 15. So again, the weighting is on the content. So we'll jump and have a look, and note that on the bottom, I've not gone down far enough for you to see the signature box, but again, please sign it. Judging criteria on the back, so you can read this at leisure and remind yourself just before the contest if you think, content, what am I actually looking for? But like the humorous speech, I'll do a quick breakdown for you. Again, this purpose, always, even when you're evaluating, think, what purpose is this speech structured around? And is it shaped right round that purpose? Opening, body, and conclusion all the time. So look for that nice structure, particularly conclusion. So many people, especially in table topics, finish off with a quick few words and it's not rounded off nicely. It should be a recap, even in table topics, very brief recap and a nice finish. If they finish with a punch, that's fabulous. Delivery should be smooth. I'm sure you've all seen people do table topics when they've hesitated and and ahed and gone off at this way and then gone off at that way. But you've seen others where they've latched onto something pretty early and run with it, and it just flows. And you think, did they know what that was going to be before they did it? It's amazing. But the smoothness is a huge part of what you're looking for in a table topic structure. And examples, if appropriate, if that's the icing on the cake. Again, were you able to determine the speaker's purpose? Did the table topic relate directly to the question? Quite a few people can talk very entertainingly for a minute or two, and you think, oh, that was good. And they think, they didn't answer the question though. So in a competition, that's one of the things you must ask yourself when you're looking at content. Was the response clear, logical? Did it sort of seem well ordered in that person's mind? Or, as many of them are, including mine, were they just a jumble of random thoughts? So give marks for clearness, logically, and well presented answers. Okay, if you judge at a contest, you will improve your own speech giving and evaluations, because you will understand what makes a good speech. And then when you evaluate, you'll be able to touch on things. Instead of just saying, oh, use the stage more or more vocal variety, you can say, structure it more around the purpose. Was the purpose clear? Was there enough signposting? So it will improve you enormously all round. It'll just help you grow. Doing it in a competition does make you step up. And you'll be loved. You'll be very valuable member if you are a judge. And as you build up your judging skills, even local clubs will start saying, oh, any chance you're free on this date? And you will be a well-known person. Okay, so that is straightforward judging. Before I move on to look at tie-breaking judge, chief judge, and then even into protests, I am not the guru of competition judging in Toastmasters. That's someone else's job, but I found so many things on competitions went in at a very high level, and I wanted to make this accessible to new judges and those who have judged and want to just improve. So, any questions? I'll have a quick look in the chat. Oh, if I can get the chat up. Don't know if I can get, oh yes, it's up here. Okay, let's have a quick look in the chat, see if anything's in there. Not that I can see. Any hands up? Okay, I will press on. If you've taken all you need to take, don't feel obliged to listen to, if you're very new to judging, don't feel obliged to stay and listen to the next bit, because sometimes too much information, you go and lose the essentials that might have gone in by now. So, tie-breaking. If you're asked to be a tie-breaking judge, the first time I was asked, I was, tie-breaking, tie-breaking? I don't know what to do. I can't do it. It's just the same, except you rank everybody. If there's 8 speeches, you rank 8 speeches. If there's only 3, then obviously you only rank 1, 2, 3. But however many contestants there are, you rank all of them. And then what happens, if 2 people tie, the chief judge will come and ask for your ballot. If there's no tie, your ballot is not needed. So they will look at your ballot, say there's a tie between Joe and Alison. They will look just at yours and see who you ranked highest, whether it was Joe or whether it was Alison. And whoever you have ranked highest, doesn't matter if they're first and last or in the middle somewhere, whoever's higher in your opinion, that person will get it. Is that clear enough? So You rank everybody. The chief judge will come and ask for this if there is a tie. Happens occasionally, more often than you think. So I would say 1 in 10 probably. So, you may get asked for it, and then they will use your ranking to split the tie. That's all there is to it. So nothing too much. And your ballot may not even ever get looked at, but it's there as backup. Okay, so yes, I've just said all that, so that's fine. The tiebreaker judge, if you're chief judge, the tiebreaker judge should be briefed separately and kept anonymous, even from the other judges. This is so that there's no backlash, so people, sort of, well, they were the tiebreaker judge, and I know there was a tie, and they didn't pick me. And it's awful if someone gets upset and wants to confront someone. Judges, as much as possible, are kept anonymous, and even if you know who the judges are, the judge's verdict is final. You can't go and moan or complain or anything. You just have to accept it. So it's not looked at unless there's a tie. Chief judge responsibilities. Once you've been a judge once or twice, you may be asked to take the chief judge role. It's quite a nice role, actually, because you do not judge yourself, and therefore you don't need to be kept secret. Everybody knows who the chief judge is. So what do they have to do? First of all, they've got to find some judges. Now, if someone is organising this competition as a level 4 project, which we try and encourage our club members to do, that may already have been done. Certainly at area level, each club should provide 2 judges. So quite often this is not an arduous task, but it may be. You may take on and say yes, and then say, so what judges have we got now? Oh, I haven't got any yet. So be prepared to go around with cap in hand and ask for judges. Make sure you've got at least 5 at club level, plus a tiebreaker, so that's 6 in all, and ideally more. I think Alan's got, well, he did tell somebody he got 20. I know it's not 20, but he's got quite a lot for our club competition, which is coming up tomorrow. And it never hurts. More judges, the better. Make sure each judge has returned a signed eligibility form. So some judges do it on a spreadsheet. They just tick people off when they've got the eligibility back. And send everyone a link to the rule book. Nobody ever reads the rule book from beginning to end. However, quite often you need to delve into it to sort out one problem. And slowly you build up a general knowledge. So don't send it to them and say, please read this, because they will run in the opposite direction. But say, here's a link to the rule book, should you have any queries or want to look further into your role. It's quite nicely divided up, and it's okay to read in small chunks, but yes, beginning to end is a little bit heavy. So you've got to brief the judges. You've pretty much got to tell them what I've just told you. Go through the back of the ballot sheet form with them. Make sure they realise they have to be unbiased, and it's pretty obvious stuff, but you've still got to remind them. The eligibility forms will make sure they've all got the right qualifications, if qualifications are needed. And make sure they know about signing the bottom. Unsigned ballots go in the bin. So really emphasise that. Go over it in the briefing. Mention it loudly just before the competition. You've also got to brief the timekeepers and the ballot counters. So they are your responsibility. The Sergeant at Arms is a bit of a wanderer. Sometimes the contest chair will brief them, sometimes you do. Usually it's the contest chair, but not always, so just check with the contest chair who's looking after the sergeant-at-arms. And timekeepers, pretty easy. They write down the time. Each contestant, they write the minutes and the seconds, have 2 timekeepers at least, and I would say tell both of them to set their stopwatches off or whatever they're using, their phones, because if one is daydreaming and forgets to start on time, you have a second backup. Now, if someone is out of time, that is less than 30 seconds before the green, except for table topics, that's got to be the green, or more than 30 seconds after the red, please circle it. There is no bell in a competition. You've probably come across that before. So the speaker is allowed to just go on and on and on. You record the time and put a big circle round it. And then Chief Judge, when all the ballots are collected in, should walk past your table, glance at this, and see immediately if there are any disqualifications. They may actually say to you, are there any disqualifications? And you can either confirm or deny, but it's really helpful if you circle it and it's an instant thing for the Chief Judge to see. So Chief Judge, don't forget to pick that up, or at least look at it on your way out with the ballot papers. The counter's tally sheet, you will have a fistful of the ballots. And what the ballot counters do is add it all up. They give first place 3 points. So you put the name of the judge, the name of the contestant, and if that judge put that person first, you give them 3 marks. Second place gets 2, third place gets 1. I'm terrified of being a ballot counter because I know I'd get it wrong, but it is a very straightforward and easy job. And you go off with the Chief Judge, do all this in a quiet area or a different room. The Chief Judge, sometimes the Chief Judge likes to do it themselves, but I think it's nicer if the ballot counters actually do it and the Chief Judge overlooks and checks it. And then when you are absolutely sure of your maths, then you can do first, second, and third. And you need to think about the certificates at this point. If you do certificates of participation, they can be done beforehand because you know who's participating. We've come away from those a little bit in our club because they're not terribly meaningful and it takes a lot of time, paper, and so on. So we just give the 1, 2, 3 certificates. And you cannot get those ready until you know. So as soon as you know, if your handwriting is awful, make sure you've got a ballot counter who's got nice handwriting and ask them very kindly to write out the certificates because you want to have them ready for when you go back in the room. So, Chief Judge Responsibilities version 2. On the night, you are responsible for providing all the paperwork. So that's spare eligibility forms. Your judge rushes in at the last minute and says, "Oh, I forgot my form, sorry, left it at home." You say, "No worry, here's another one. Please fill that out." So always handy having some of those. You've got to have the judge's ballot forms for the correct competition. There are 4 different ones, so make sure you've got the correct one. And there are also 4 different tiebreaker forms, 1 for each competition. So you need plenty of ballot forms, just in case a judge drops it, loses it, messes it up, and it's a tie-breaking one. Timekeeper's sheets, you need to give those on the night. We just looked at those a minute ago. And the tally sheets for the ballot counters. So quite a bit of admin for the day. Get it ready early, have it in a package, don't leave it at home. And once you're there, it should all flow fairly smoothly. Okay, any questions so far on Chief Judge? We're going to have a quick look at protests. Always interesting to know what people can protest over. And out of interest, the 3 grounds for a protest. Anybody know them?
Julie, before we go into protest, Julie, can I just ask a question, please? When you've got the tiebreaker, supposing you've got first is Sarah, tied second is Joe and Alison, and third is Adrian. So you look at the placing for Joe and Alison on the tiebreaker sheet.
Adrian's out, I'm afraid.
Okay, so if Joe is the highest placed
The
by the
tie for
tiebreaker,
second will go into second and third, and therefore bump the third person down.
that's right. So the highest of Joe and Alison becomes second, and the lowest comes third.
The other one of them would come third.
Perfect. Thank you very
So
much.
yes,
Yeah,
no,
that's
that's a good point to make. Yes, unfortunately, you can seem to be third and then you lose it. However, you never
yes.
know that. So that is
Thank you.
right. Okay, anybody want to put answers in the chat or even say them out loud if you're brave? Are 3 grounds. Eligibility, not surprisingly. You might see someone speak and think, I don't think they're a member anymore. I'm sure they didn't pay their fees last time. So eligibility on membership or qualifications or whatever for the international speech contest, that's the only one where you have to have level 2 to actually be a contestant. So originality, we briefly mentioned that. You are allowed to quote famous people or whatever in your speech, which is obviously not original, but it mustn't come to more than 25%. So the majority of your speech has got to come from here. And if you are listening to something and you think, oh, you know, that's an awful lot, at least half of that speech was taken from somewhere else, that would be grounds to protest. And reference to another contestant or another contestant's speech. Now, this is a new one. It's been around for a couple of years now, but we still are not quite happy with it. It's a weird one. If a speaker says, as Adam said only a few minutes ago, blah, 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 they are referencing another person's speech. That's obvious. Sometimes it's more subtle. I've seen people mention things and they say, as already has been said, and they've sort of looked at another speaker. That was grounds for protest. So be very aware. Don't mention anyone else from today's speech or previous ones. Just stick to your own stuff is the best advice for that. So who can make a protest? Well, we're all going to start now, aren't we? Now we know. We're all going to say, hang on, I don't think that's original. Only voting judges, remember that is not the chief judge. The chief judge does not have a vote, or the contestants can make a protest. So the audience, tough. If you're sitting there going, they can't do it. Tough. You just have to swallow it up. Otherwise, it would be a nightmare. So how do you lodge a protest? Suppose you are another contestant and you feel they've perhaps referenced your speech or you've heard that before. You must lodge your protest with the chief judge and or the contest chair before the results are read out. So you must, it's no good at the end as you're going home, getting in your car saying, by the way, I think, too late. Done, dusted, can't be looked at. So if you feel you've got a protest, it's pretty rare, but I have known it happen. A couple of times I've been involved in a protest and it's tricky. Now, if the protest is on the grounds of originality or referencing another contest, that speaker has got to be allowed to defend themselves, to explain what they meant, whether it was clear cut or whatever. Usually, the chief judge will come in, call all of the judges into somewhere secret, another room, another area, explain what's gone on. By the way, your anonymity goes out the window then, but hey ho, can't be helped. He explains what's happening, or she explains what's happening, and you sort of perhaps debate it yourself, and then the speaker themselves is brought in and allowed to defend themselves. It's really tricky. Everyone's very uncomfortable. We all feel so much for the speaker who's trying to defend themselves. It's not pleasant, but when the speakers had a chance to defend themselves, they go away and you vote. You must have a majority of the voting judges to concur. So hopefully you will never be involved in a process. It's not pleasant, but I have known at least two, so it happens. Eligibility is easier. If you've not paid your dues, if you've not got the correct levels, if you're in the international competition, the contest chair can just disqualify someone on the basis of eligibility. And decisions are final. So you can't be challenged, you can't be quizzed, you can't be, asked to explain yourself. Hopefully nobody knows who you are anyway. Really hard at club level, but gets easier as you get up because the audience gets bigger and bigger, so you can be a bit more lost in there. But we are all very respectful of judges. They give up their time. We do not challenge them or, sort of quiz any of them about what they've done. And yeah, the bottom bit is all you give in. The top bit is secret to you. So I'm hoping, yeah, they're rare, but be prepared. Hoping that has made you feel confident to be a judge. No one's going to change it. No one's going to look at your working out. And I hope it's inspired you, if you be a judge or if you have been a judge, to try and do it to the best of your ability. Perhaps the criteria is a little bit clearer now. Perhaps using the ballot sheet, you think, oh, yeah, I might try that, rather than just going for, I think that's a 5, just on a gut sort of feeling at the end. It's up to you. You do it in your own way. As I say, I've known some judges do it on a gut feeling. Possibly they're right, but I advise you just to try and do it to the best of your ability.